In this video, I'm going to explain Jack Dempsey's double shift technique from his book, Championship Fighting. And then I'm going to go over how to combine different types of punches, different types of shifts that you see from the likes of Dmitry Pirog or Triple G. Just as a preface, this is actually a pretty advanced boxing technique. So if you're a beginner, probably don't try this. But I only really started to understand it recently to end up realizing that I used it to win one of my fights last year. So I don't know, I was doing it subconsciously, but now I actually understand what it is. I can actually teach you. So as I said at the start of the video, this technique is explained in Jack Dempsey's book, Championship Fighting, something to do with aggressive defense, can't remember, right? And in this book, he basically says how if you've got an opponent that's moving backwards to defend against punches, then this is when you want to shift forwards and throw as you're coming forwards. Now, there are a couple dangers to this technique. Like shifting forwards is like kind of risky, but boxing is pretty risky. So it's like, what did you expect? You know? So yeah, if you've got someone who's like fast on their feet and they always just move backwards out of range, then this is when you want to use this double shift. So basically it goes like this. I'll just get straight into it. You start in your normal stance. For me, that's orthodox. And then you kind of want to telegraph. Well, this is what he says in his book anyway. But you want your opponent to move backwards, and because you want to chase them down, basically. And you do that by throwing your lead straight, but you kind of want them to know it's coming. You want them to start moving back. So you're going to telegraph your lead straight, and you're going to throw it. It's inevitably going to miss. And then once you've thrown that, you're going to push off with your back foot. When you push into the ground with your back foot, you're not really pivoting like this because you're not keeping your weight back. You're actually like hurtling your body weight forwards like this, and you're coming over your front foot. So I always teach the right hand, or the cross, is like sit your weight back and turn your body. But with this, you kind of want to already be a little bit turned on the back foot so you can really press into the ground forwards like this with obviously a fair bit of rotation in your body too. And then you just want to catapult your arm forwards. So I've thrown somewhat lazy jab, and then right behind it, I'm throwing my cross, but I'm pressing into the ground with my back foot and throwing my body weight forwards like that. All right, and when I throw that punch, I'm really like hurtling my arm forwards as much as I can. So it's coming off the body, I'm pressing, I'm shifting forwards. Obviously, when I do that, my weight's going to come way over the front foot, which means I'm going to come off balance. So instead of just falling over there, we need to bring this back foot through and shift into the southpaw stance, okay? Or the opposite stance if you're already southpaw. So it's just a 1-2, and then I'm in my southpaw stance here. Once I'm in my southpaw stance, I'm going to push off my left leg, or if you started in southpaw, then it'd be your right leg, should be in orthodox. I'm going to push off with my left leg, and I'm going to throw a straight left and do exactly the same thing, but bringing this leg forwards and then coming through like that, okay? If the first two shots didn't land, then the last one definitely will, okay? And if it doesn't, then you're in your orthodox stance, ready to throw more punches anyway. So this is where you want to be backing up someone onto the ropes or into a corner. You're closing the range really quickly whilst throwing big power shots, because these shots, they've got your entire body weight moving towards your opponent, and it's all coming behind your knuckles. All right, so it should look like this, getting your opponent onto the ropes. I know like this isn't going to be the right positioning in the ring. I'd want to be more into the center, but you know, we're like trying to film here, so just bear with. And here I'm in my orthodox stance, and I can start laying into them once I got them on the ropes. You know, this is actually the shifting technique. Right, this is actually super important because I'm going to do it coming towards the camera. You want to stay as small of a target as you can. You want to be compact, because if you're coming forwards, right, and you're throwing these shots, if you're like open like this, and you're striding forwards and you're open, you're just going to walk straight onto a punch and probably get dropped. All right. So when you're doing this, you've got to be super compact. You've got to keep your elbows in. And when you're throwing those straight shots, they've got to go straight down the pipe, right? You've got to come straight down like this, bringing your shoulders up to your chin. So I'm here like this, boom, boom. You want to make yourself as small target as you can. And whilst one hand is out, and that shoulder's up, and this hand covering this side of your face. Right, so I'm quite hard to hit here. Maybe I probably didn't do it as well in the demonstration, but I'm just emphasizing that so, you practice it that way, as opposed to going like, just leaving yourself mega open to walk onto shots. So especially when you're closing the range quickly, you don't want to get caught because you're just amplifying your opponent's power. You want to be a small target. So even if they do land a punch, it barely gets through and it sort of is padded a little bit at least by your guard. Also, something pretty useful with this shifting technique is, I'm sure you've heard when you're fighting someone in the same stance, you want to get your foot on the outside so you can line up the rear hand and the lead hook. Or when you shift, you kind of want to be traveling in a straight line. Your head wants to stay on the center line, right, and really leverage that rotation and push off as you come through. But as you come through, naturally, your stance is going to shift into the opposite, but you'll step to the outside, right? Because if I'm stood directly in front of my opponent here, as soon as I switch my stance, my lead foot naturally comes outside, so it lines up this shot better for me to then shift again and like punch into the next stance. Something you want to avoid when you're doing this, I've already sort of explained it by opening the chest up, but also don't bring your hips, don't extend through with your hips as you shift forwards like this. You're not trying to come upwards, you're trying to go directly forwards. So you want to keep your hips in like a posterior pelvic tilt. Okay, so you don't want them to you don't want to extend through like this. You want to keep them back. This is a power position, and that's where you're going to generate the most force, and also stay as small target as you can. You're going to stay compact. If you stay compact, you generate more force and you're harder to hit. So just keep your hips back. Don't push forwards and like hump the air as you come forwards. Doesn't work, and that just leaves you more open, takes away from the power. Okay, so stay compact, and as you come forwards, stay pretty close to the ground. As you're turning through into the opposite stance, keep this original rear foot close to the ground. Don't come up here and like lunge through. Okay, so just stay a small target as you're coming forwards. One of the more modern boxers, so there's several boxers who used to use this shifting technique. You've got Fitzsimmons shift, you've got Triple G, you've got Dmitry Pirog, but Triple G is probably the most recent boxer who still uses this sort of shifting technique as he comes forward, but he actually throws hooks whilst he does it, and there isn't really anything wrong with this, except it's pretty hard to do. Staying on balance whilst you're throwing a shot that's coming in like a circular motion, and staying a small target whilst you open up for a hook is pretty difficult to do. So you got to be pretty good, right? But Triple G, basically, when he comes forward, he'll throw, instead of throwing straight shots, he'll start with a jab, then he'll throw a rear hook. Once he's thrown the rear hook, then he'll shift forwards into this stance, and then he'll jab with this hand, and he'll throw another rear hook, step forward into orthodox again. So this is probably going to be a shit demonstration, but I'll do it anyway. So he kind of does this. No. Never done that before, to be fair. Like that. I don't know, give it a go. But yeah, try and stay a small target as you're coming forwards, because it's very easy to like come open here like this, and this is where you can get caught, especially if you're on one leg. Probably going to get nailed. So again, it's another good judging a distance is what you need if you're going to come forwards whilst you're throwing shots, shifting into the opposite stances. Also, another modern boxer who's like pretty notorious for this shifting is Dmitry Pirog, and I'll overlay one of his knockouts Wait, I've got something free for you before you leave the video. I'm sure you've heard of Hobby Warrior Elite, my online boxing program, because I say it in most videos. But there's a section of it which is a boxing roadmap, which is basically learning boxing from the ground up. And it's 5 months long. And within each of those months, there's 20 workouts for you to do. But I'm giving away the first 2 weeks of it for free. So click the link in the description and get it. You basically get all the videos that explain the fundamentals, especially for the first 2 weeks. There's a lot of fundamental stuff in there. And then you get workout plans, which are just shadow boxing workouts for you to do, well, anywhere. And it's basically just getting the reps in of the fundamentals done properly with help from videos, and yeah, it'll be useful. So go get it. Goodbye.